The cold was a different kind of enemy. You could see a Navy ship on the horizon, measure her guns, and know your chances. You could fight a storm, cursing and clawing at the rigging, praying the sails would hold. But cold crept in without warning. It didn't roar or crack like cannon fire. It whispered, slowly stealing the feeling from your fingers, stiffening your joints, sinking deep into your bones until you could barely tell if you were still alive. Winter at sea was the great equalizer. It didn't matter if you were the fiercest pirate in the Caribbean or the most seasoned smuggler of the North Sea. When the gales turned icy, you were nothing more than a man trying to keep warm. Some captains avoided the cold months entirely, putting their ships in harbour until spring thawed the waters. But pirates had no calendar but hunger and opportunity. A merchant ship sailed slower in the winter, her crew sluggish and shivering. Coastal defences grew lazy, their sentries huddling in guardhouses instead of patrolling the shore. And when a storm drove a fat, cargo-laden vessel off course, a pirate could be waiting to pounce, if he could survive the night himself. That was the trick. Gold in the hold meant nothing if your crew froze before you reached port. So across years of hard living, pirates learned their own ways to cheat death in the frozen seas. The methods were not elegant. Many were dangerous, all were unpleasant, and some would make a landsman gag just hearing them. But they worked. A ship's galley was the first refuge. The oven was never truly cold. Even after cooking was done, its bricks or tiles held the day's heat. In winter, the galley became a sanctuary, a cramped chamber glowing with the warmth of yesterday's bread or stew. Men lingered there long after meals were served, pretending to help the cook or scrub the pots just for a chance to thaw their fingers. The galley fire was carefully tended, shielded from drafts and spray, for losing it meant losing the ship's heart. Yet not everyone could fit in the galley, and some sought warmth elsewhere. The powder magazine, the place where gunpowder kegs were stored, was one of the warmest spaces aboard. It was sealed tight to keep out damp, lined to prevent sparks, and well insulated. That made it a tempting place to bed down on a freezing night. But it was a deadly gamble. One wrong move, a flint dropped from a pocket, a nail scraping too hard on wood, and the sleeping men would be blown to splinters along with the ship. Still, in the deepest cold, a pirate might take that risk, curling up between kegs of powder in the muffled silence of the magazine, knowing every breath he took could be his last. Some warmth was worn rather than found. When a crew butchered an animal, nothing went to waste, not even the fat. Rendered down into tallow, it became candles for light, grease for ropes and boots, and in the bitterest cold, a coating for the skin itself. The smell was foul, but it sealed in body heat, turning bare flesh slick and oily against the wind. The same tallow was burned in small lamps, each giving off a glow and a steady heat that could warm a man's face or keep fingers from stiffening while mending a sail in the dark. Sometimes the cold was fought with ice itself. Pirates would take worn sails or old blankets, soak them in seawater, and hang them in the wind until they froze solid. Then they would lash these stiff white sheets around their sleeping quarters, building crude walls against the wind. Inside these icy fortresses, the air stilled just enough for breath to hold its warmth. It was an odd sight, a ship in the heart of winter with frozen sails flapping not on the masts, but tied like walls around men sleeping on the deck. Animals, too, played their part. A ship might carry goats for milk, pigs for meat, chickens for eggs, and dogs for company and work. In winter, they became bedmates. A goat's flank was as warm as any blanket, a dog's steady breathing a comfort in the black hours of the night. More than one pirate swore by a hammock shared with a fat hog, the animal grumbling softly but lending its heat. Of course, the smell was something fierce, and the morning was greeted by a chorus of bleats, barks, and clucks. But warmth was warmth, and when the ship was near shore or anchored in some cold, rocky harbour, the crew gathered stones, smooth river rock, volcanic basalt, even coarse sand scooped into sacks. All could hold heat for hours after being warmed in the galley fire. These improvised heaters were wrapped in cloth and tucked under bedding or against the body. A hot stone at the foot of a hammock could keep toes alive through a long night, and a sandbag under the coat could make a freezing watch bearable. The search for good heating stones became a kind of obsession. A perfect one was passed between crewmen like treasure. Then there was the pipe, Tobacco was precious, sometimes worth as much as silver, but in the dead of winter, a lit pipe was more than a luxury. It was survival. Pirates cupped their hands around the glowing bowl, letting the heat warm their fingers and faces. Passing a pipe around in the dark was a ritual, a way to share warmth as well as smoke. In a howling gale, keeping it lit was an art, but those who managed it became heroes for the night. The soft glow of the ember, the thin tendrils of smoke, the faint heat, it was proof that life still burned aboard the frozen ship. Through these strange, stubborn practices, pirates outlasted the cold. They huddled in the galley, dozed beside kegs of powder, greased their skin with animal fat, built walls of ice, slept with livestock, clutched heated stones, and guarded the tiny warmth of a pipe's ember. None of it was glamorous, and much of it was dangerous. But it worked. Because winter at sea was more than an inconvenience, it was a battle. And like any battle, pirates fought it with whatever weapons they had, be they fire, flesh, stone, or sheer stubbornness. Gold could buy rum, women, and song once they reached port, but warmth kept them alive long enough to get there. And for a pirate, that was the richest prize of all.